Welcome back to the shop, everybody. It's a beautiful day and more reason to modify the Monte Carlo Yellow Viggen. Now, a lot of people typically like to say the OG93 is very outdated, particularly the dash, cluster, even the headlights, things like that, and they're not necessarily wrong. So today what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be removing the full dash. Actually, I wouldn't say upgrading, I would say reverse grading. We're going to be putting a all black center section and black dash from a NG900 in. But most importantly, what we're going to be doing today is something that's going to be really cool, is we're going to be putting an upgraded NG93/OG9506 and up Dame cluster in. Now specifically, we are going to be utilizing an 06 to 09 Dame cluster. It doesn't matter if it's a manual or automatic. What this is going to allow us to do is run a little bit more modern looking. And we've got a little bit of a surprise for you guys later on in the video. This is not the cluster we're using. We actually have an upgraded cluster we're gonna be using that's gonna match and accent the Monte Carlo that much better. So we're gonna go ahead and get the dash out, show you guys some of the steps of what that takes, and then we're gonna go ahead and get into the wiring aspect. Now, when we get to the wiring aspect of things, there's a couple different ways we can do this. We can either move the SID to this panel here if we'd like, and then use our steering wheel controls. We go with an updated steering wheel as well, or we can leave the SID where it's at and then utilize this screen for something else, wire in, something fun, informational, whatever. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. We're gonna go ahead, remove the dash. All the center section is gonna be replaced as well with black from the NG900. So we're gonna go ahead and be also replacing all the plastic pieces in the center. That gray, cannot stand that they use the gray in the Viggen. One of the things that biggest frustration is, like, obviously the glove box is black, where they decided to have the black accents underneath, but for whatever reason we didn't get the black dash or the black center plastic pieces. So it only makes sense to actually replace all that with black. So we're gonna do all that as well. Now let's get this thing ripped apart. So I also got one of our employees helping me today, Caden over here, our youngest employee. He'll be helping me knock some of this out. But first thing I want to show before we really jump into it is this is hands down one of my favorite OG93 things. This is hands down one of my favorite things. They're kind of hard to find, and there's a lot of Chinese plastic ones. Sadly, the leather on this one's starting to crack, but this is arguably one of the coolest finds that you can find for your OG93 or NG900. If you're an OG like me and your very first Saab, like mine was, actually has the flip up armrest, that is like the holy grail. So this is the armrest in question. This actually bolts straight onto the seat, which is kind of cool. And when you're driving, you're sitting here, you're shoo, shoo, shoo. But the problem with that is I've only ever seen them in automatics. I don't know if they ever came with a manual, but I can verify that it does work in a manual, because what's nice is you can flip it up if you're ripping. But if you're driving normal and cruising, it flips back down. So it's kind of cool. With that being said, let's get this started. We're stuck on something. There it is. Oh. So something else real quick. Glove box is pretty straightforward, but this is a little tricky. It took me a few years of breaking a couple of these to figure this out. But when you go to take these out, you got to pop this open. There's another hidden tab underneath here. If you don't get it, you end up just breaking them. So you got to get in here and get this tab as well. I'll show you once I get it out. You essentially have these little tabs right here, and you gotta just push these down. They kind of bend in place. So when you're putting it back together, you just kind of bend everything back in place. They're just little push tabs, but that's the hidden one that I always, well, I wouldn't say I always, I know now, but first time I took one apart, I broke it because of that. So same thing with these. They just kind of, you've got to put a little tension here and here, and then this kind of comes out. Another step that's really important is make sure you disconnect the battery, because we don't want to set off either airbag. So always make sure safety first, have the airbag turn off. So we're going to get this airbag removed so I can get the steering wheel out so we can get some more removed. On the steering wheel, you have these little guys that are on each side of the airbag that just go right here and they just pop out. Those are going to be hiding our Torx bits behind there that we need to grab. So I got T30. So these won't come all the way out. you're gonna back them all the way. They'll stay in place, but they will not physically come out. So once you get it backed all the way out on both sides, we can pop the airbag out. Window switch is pretty straightforward. As you just saw, Caden, you just use a plastic pry tool. You pry the little tab and then unconnect this. And then if you have the winter package option for the rear heated seats, it would be essentially, but we don't have it. Even those cars from Canada, you would think rear heated seats for your passengers, but they're not for it. Want everybody to be cold, I guess. Yeah, currently the back seats are out. So we're actually gonna keep the back seats deleted in this car. We're gonna do a proper welded in roll cage. So now that I've got both of these bolts, both bolts are just kind of loose here. This will then allow me to just do that. Be careful when doing so, because you do have a clock spring back here. The airbag tab, this one just pops off, and then these are kind of like Velcroed in place. So you just have to essentially use a pick tool. There's a little pin on each of these, and then these unplug. Both of these get unplugged, airbag gets unplugged, it'll end up looking like this. You do need to use a 22 and an impact to remove this. Now we've already removed it before, but obviously we're removing it again. Once you do that, be very careful that you keep your hands on here, and then you're gonna work it back and forth to get it off once the nut's off. The immobilizer surround that senses the keys, you could actually just twist this and it pops up like that, and then same thing, you have one of these little tabs, comes out, nothing crazy. This cover then pops off. This comes off like so. Kind of crusty, needs to be cleaned up, but we're not gonna be reutilizing it, so it does not matter. Once you have popped that off, you then expose this bolt right here, which looks like it's maybe stripped or a little broke. We'll go ahead and pop that off, and then there's gonna be a bolt that's back here under this cover that we need to take off as well. So as you can see, there's a bolt right here, Torx. So 22 on an impact. So very crucial step, because you don't want to destroy your clock spring and you really can't get them anymore. So that's why you want to be careful. It's a very easy way to remove this. Don't just try to yank it. You want to literally just ever so slightly start to work the steering wheel like this. And if you do little movements, you'll get it nice and easy like that. Doesn't need to be any kind of crazy hossing. Don't hoss it off. You want to be dainty with it. You want to gingerly take it off. And then they just feed through like so. The airbag one's a little bit more of a pain in the ass because it gets stuck. So you have to like slightly fish it through. It's a little bit more pain in the ass. You gotta flip it actually. So it likes to be a bitch. And don't go playing with it, because if you play with it and you get it all out of sort, you're fucked. Now, if you've done this, now mind you, they actually fix this later on. It has a lock on them. But so we know we had it essentially like it goes through a certain way. So if I just was like, I have no idea what's going on, and then they twirl it a bunch, do, you know, crazy spaz stuff, you would essentially rip the ribbon. So what you can do is you can go all the way to the left, and that's 1, 2. Put your back in the center. 1, 2. That'd be all the way to the right. 1, 2, all the way back to the left. So that's the easiest way if you ever get all mixed up. But the worst thing you want to do is just put it on any orientation. You just rip the ribbon and then you're done. Now Allison's taking out the bolt in the back there because she's back there filming, obviously. These are broke. So now these are broke. I think the last time we had this stuff off, there was a lot of stuff that was just old and crusty and broke. So that's why we're replacing majority of it. Now you have 2 bolts here. Now there is a hidden bolt that is underneath that if you miss it, you'll end up breaking it, but it goes right up underneath here. It's another T25. And then once you have all of them, it just comes apart like so. Now normally there's little guys that hold it over top of these, and they're broke on this, and this thing's seen better days. We're replacing this with a black one. Okay, so these are always broke. You touch them and then they just shatter in a million pieces, but you essentially grab these. Oh, yep, see, that one's already kind of broke. This comes off like so. So you see how weak it is? They almost always break. You can get lucky sometimes, but depending on if the car saw a lot of hot or cold climate, that's what happens. Once you get that, obviously these pop off like normal as any other connector in the car. And then this little guy down here, same thing. Little pick tool, and it'll pop him out. So this one's gonna have to get replaced because it's broke.
Broken.
It's broken. This one's broke.
Because it broke.
And then this side, same thing. Both tabs. Ooh, both of those tabs are so good. So we're good on that one. There it is. That doesn't have to come out. So Allison just took these two tins off back here as well because she's back there. Now those are all out, so then this can then lift out. You just take the e-brake, extend it a little bit, and then this just slides up like so. You get to slide, pull it back, and then slide up because you got to clear this. Okay, so now I'm going to remove this kick panel. We've got a couple here. There's one that's way. There's another one down here. You get this one, this, and then there's some on the side here. Then we have underneath the carpet on the left side here. We need to pull this tin out, but this tin, for whatever reason, is not in there. Someone has removed it at some point. I guess when you buy used cars, people work on them, obviously don't put stuff back the way it should. So that's actually missing. So we're just gonna remove the other ones that are still here. We're starting to take the cluster bezel out. Caden already removed this bolt here. There's a bolt here, a bolt here. Up here, there's one as well. And then we're gonna have some over here. We'll show you those. These, and then there's a few that are always forgotten. They're right here, 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 and then there's one down here as well. And then the side cover, there's a bolt down at the bottom you have to take out. So there's two push tabs. Push the center of them in, and they're right here. Once those are pushed in the centers, you can push out the whole rivet, and then that allows us to take this out. Go ahead and remove the two T25s holding the OBD2 connector plug as well. So see, this is back to what I was saying earlier when we started the video, is they put black kick panels on both sides and it looks so much better. You put it on the black with the door and it matches. So they have the doors that are black, looks great. So at least in the Viggens should have had a black dash and black plastic. They already had the stuff pretty much made for the NG900. So they're like, let's do gray and black for the OG 93s, you know? Well, and I guess you could say tan as well, but this should not have, this should have never happened. This should have never happened. The gray looks horrible. Now, you got your tabs. So this is ready to come out now. So you just kind of carefully remove this. And cigarette lighter plugs. This was for our aux, and then you're gonna have this plug on the back of your little most annoying thing ever when they get dirty. So we're gonna have to take the speaker covers off as well. We have a hidden 10 millimeter under there, which easiest way to take that 10 millimeter out is you just put the wrench through the windshield. But if you're wanting to keep your windshield, then you're gonna have to just get a 10 millimeter wrench. It's actually way harder on the 9.5s. It's an absolute pain in the ass. On these, it's pretty easy, but a 9.5s, you cannot get a wrench in there for shit. Easiest way to get these out, you just pop from the back, unplug. We get asked this all the time too. People say, what is the missing button? What is the button that's over here? So in some markets, sadly, in the United States, we didn't get it, but you have an actual headlight leveler that actually goes up, down, so you can choose the height of the light. We never got it, which sucks. And then there's also the button over here that's empty. And everyone asks, what's the empty button that's over here? That's the accessory button. It's just a circle. I've only ever seen one time. So that's rare. And then this one I've actually seen more frequently than not because a lot of people get that one, but the accessory button's actually rare. So we have the hidden one down here and then the one up here. So now that we have all these out, I always like to do a double check before I just yank on it. Just make sure we don't miss anything. Yeah, so this is ready to come out. And now this is the carbon, as you guys obviously can see, this is the carbon fiber. It is real carbon fiber, but it's really just a sticker that Saab actually did, and they just went over the original Viggen dash. So this obviously has the Viggen dash underneath, and then there's this carbon fiber. It is real carbon fiber, but it's, I don't know, I'm not a big fan, to be honest. You have the plug on the back of your fastened seatbelt slate, so make sure you get that out. Now the bezel is out. Now we're gonna get this out, and then we're gonna go ahead and remove the speaker up here. That panel up there gets removed as well. and then we're gonna remove the whole dash. I'm removing this panel as well, just so it's out of our way. There's a T25 that goes right here. So this is being removed as well. And now this whole dash is gonna be coming out. Now something else, we're starting to see this more frequently, is this section right through here on the dash starts to crack really bad. It really, at this point, is almost non-existent to see one without a crack. Ironically, Caden's car actually does not have one, but someone put a fucking sticky magnet thing on it, and now it's got a stain right there, but no crack in the airbag, but there's a big old stain. So it's like, you can't have nice things. Something I'm going to point out too, and this is probably the hardest step, I would argue, is the most problematic thing with these cars, because they get sunbaked, and that's this cover right here. Ironically, the cover is not broke, at least I don't think it's broke. So it might be glued on, I don't know that 100% that it may or may not do. It is moving freely, so I think all the tabs are intact. Now there's 4 little prongs that essentially slide into place, so all you have to do is actually just move this back like that. That's all I had to do. I always put my finger up here, just pry it back, and then if you do that, a lot of times, let's see, shoo, I think we have all of our tabs intact. Yeah, I think so. Shoot, all the tabs are intact. So now is the tricky part. So once you get it out, that's how professional does it. All the tabs are still intact. Normally they break from just heat in general. So hot commodity right here, man. If there's somebody out there who has not 3D printed these, this is something that needs to be 3D printed. We're actually designing and I've been wanting to do it forever, but designing a gauge pod that actually sits right here. So you insert it, and there's an actual gauge pod that sits right there for the, OG 95s and OG 93s that actually has a gauge pod on it. So I never really wanted to make replacement ones because I didn't think it necessarily match. There's 4 T25s that hold the cluster in. So we're gonna take those out. And then that's all that holds that in. And there's 2 plugs on the back of the cluster. Now, if you are doing what we're doing and you're replacing the gauge cluster, take note of your mileage so you can put the proper mileage in there. But we're gonna make sure to put one at least in with what was in there, just if you were to ever sell the car. It's the correct thing to do, but something to take note of as well. Now this car's obviously in kilometers, so we have to do the conversion. But we got our 2 plugs. This is our blue wiring from before for anyone who remembers from our previous video. For anyone who's watching, our wiring for our TCS is relevant, and you'll understand why we did that TCS, and that is so that we can effectively run the updated cluster. If you are wanting to do the updated cluster in an OG 93, the car has to have TCS. If it does not have TCS, you're not gonna have any type of signal from that ABS module. So essentially what will end up happening is you'll have no speedometer. Yeah, you can do it without doing a TCS, but then your speedometer is never gonna work properly. So it is important, if you wanna have a speedometer and run that updated cluster, is you need to do the TCS modification. And that's the real reason. And that's the God, I can't say real. And that's the real reason why we did the TCS mod. We've got the 10 out over there. We've got the 10 out right here. There's a push pin here. There's a push pin here. I gotta take this 10 out. And if Caden already, did you take the 10 off on that side? Yeah. We have the 10s off on both sides. And then now this is pretty loose. So we're gonna take this out. This then is gonna also pop out. So there's also a 10 millimeter that holds a seatbelt looking strap to the airbag on the passenger side. So it's up underneath. So you have the 4 tabs. Make sure when you pry, you get right where those are, or else you'll just destroy this thing. And you gotta push these tabs down. You have 2 of them in here, and then that comes out in a solid piece. These are really fragile, so you gotta kind of, once again, just kind of have hands for it and gingerly take it out. But this one came out with no issues. So then you drop it and it just shatters. Now we take the dash out. So we're gonna just slowly work this back. Now, you do have zip ties that do have to be cut for your wiring. It's in here as well. So that's zip tied. So as you pull the dash out, you'll then get tension where those zip ties are, and we'll cut those. I'll show you. Okay. So now the dash is out. So that's the easy part. So now that we have everything out, now that everything is out, the next step, which I think is the easiest step, we're gonna go ahead and do the wiring for the new gauge cluster. It's just easier with everything out of the way. Instead of trying to wire in a little tight crevice area, we're gonna go ahead and do the wiring now. Show you guys what that looks like so you have an idea of what that wiring is. It's kind of a pain in the ass. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and tell you it's easy. So for someone who has never done any form of soldering or wiring, this is probably not for you, but for someone who knows how to do basic soldering, this is a great upgrade for your OG93. Bush, extra bush. I'll take my burger with extra butter. No, can I get my burger with extra butter? So if you're familiar with wiring and soldering and understanding how to read schematics, I would tell you that this is something that pretty much anyone can do. However, if you are not seasoned with soldering or reading electrical schematics, this is not for you. Now, as you can see here, I have 2 printed off, which I just arguably like to use paper copies still versus digital, but you can obviously run digital copies off of WIS. I have 2 printed out from the original WIS handbook. Now, left is a 2000 Viggen and or OG93. Right is a 2006 9.5. This is very straightforward if you understand this. We're obviously gonna take said pins that would be here on the updated MIU, and we're gonna correlate them to the same pins. Now, some of them aren't gonna be utilized. Perfect example, the airbag light is slightly different. The SRS/ABS module. So the ABS module is now been obviously changed to the ESP. So this car now does have ESP. So those are gonna be slightly different, but more or less the things that are the most important are powers, grounds, oil pressure sensor, fuel sensor, all that, which is all pretty much the same. So you have 42 up here. We're over on this one, you have 42 down here. 43 is still down here, 43. And then most importantly, 44. And then number 2 down here, alternator. And then your P-bus and your I-bus. I-bus and P-bus. P-bus, P-bus, I-bus, I-bus. It's important that you put those in the right orientation. One thing that's interesting is our light switch, 23 here and 9. Neither one of my harnesses had those. Some of them will, some of them won't. So it just depends on your car. Now, if you're putting the new MIU into, let's say, a 2002 9.5 or OG93, it is gonna be slightly different. The pin is a little bit different. Now, one thing you can do, which is what I did, is I have a harness from an 06 9.5 Dame, you can see here. And then I still have my original connectors for my original MIU. Now, I actually soldered in my new plug into my existing old plugs. And the reason why I did that is if I ever decide I want to switch back to the old MIU, I can do so. If I get bored with the newer style, or maybe we actively, as I say, the Salson's gonna say no to this, but if we ever decide to sell the Monte Carlo 3-door, more or less, we can put the original MIU back in without having to undo all of our work. So as you can see, I also have the SID in here. Now, this is something that's really important. You can't run both SIDs. You cannot run an SID in the MIU and an SID over here. Now, if you're planning on utilizing that space where the SID sits, the original OEM, which we are going to be doing, the SID will also get hardwired and changed to here. So the wiring will have to also be done for the SID to this plug as well. Now, if you wanted to keep your SID over here and not worry about utilizing the SID screen down here in the bottom of the MIU, then you don't need to do that wiring. You can just disregard the gray plug back here. However, we will be doing that. But before we get to the SID portion, we're gonna make sure that the wiring is correct for the MIU. So the stock MIU, as you can see, I can still plug this in. Now there's a few steps. Now this actually won't start the car once it's unmarried, but this, I'll just show you that you can still actively reuse this. Turn the key on. Everything powers up as it should, more or less. Fuel, my mileage, my original mileage is down here in kilometers, store, all the sensors, all that stuff is still actively working. However, it's not going to necessarily start the car. Now, the new MIU, which has already been married, which I will show you a few steps you do need to take on the Tech 2 to make this make sense, but I just have my single plug for now that's going to just go in right here. And we're gonna put that in. So now, as you can see, I've got a MIU. Now the mileage is actively not correct. Primarily, this is miles versus kilometers. I will update that as well. We're actually gonna be resetting the MIU altogether once we do a full build on this car. So if you're essentially wanting to do it the legal way, you would take your existing mileage, update that mileage onto here, find a lower mileage one. As you can see, it is in. I want to make sure the car is not in drive here, and then we'll go ahead and give it a start. So we now effectively have a 2006 and up MIU in our 2009 Viggen, 2009 Viggen. Now we do have a few lights that I wanted to address. Depending on the year of the car, you are going to have to change the pin and reroute the LED / run of wire for the airbag light. That's something that we are going to be doing. And then also we're going to be updating our MIU cluster as a whole. This cluster is not the one that is going to be going in this car. This was solely to test in the car, and I will be showing you what MIU we will actually be putting in the car here shortly. Now that we know all the wiring is good for this, we're actually going to go ahead and get our dash put back in, get all the dash pieces, everything put back in. Now we are updating, or I should say backdating, our dash and all of our plastic components from an NG900. So now that we know that works, I just want to kind of go over something. We are going to be utilizing a different MIU because we've got a custom what we're going to be putting in here. It is going to be an 06 and up style, but it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be backdating the dash in here for an NG900 dash because it is black, looks way better than the gray that came in the Viggen. So we're going to be putting a black dash in, all the black plastic pieces in the center as well. And that's just going to look way better, especially when we do the black headliner. And we're going to be deleting the sunroof at a later video. Show you guys that when we put a carbon fiber roof in. So now that we know that our wiring is good, that we got the car running, driving, that's important. I'm going to be doing the wiring next on the SID. And then once the SID wiring is done, the dash will then go in, and then we'll go ahead and get our updated steering wheel and a few other components. Now, what is important, if you are wanting to utilize the SID in the center section here, it is crucial that you get a newer style steering wheel. So you need to get 2003, 2004, 2005 that has the buttons on the actual steering wheel that are effectively the updated clock spring as well. So you will need to get a newer style steering wheel with the appropriate buttons to utilize the SID on the MIU if you decide you want to go with the MIU and SID combo in one unit. Now each car is going to be slightly different depending on which one you go with, but most of the important ones really is the I bus and the P bus, making sure you get those correctly. And now I obviously have everything kind of tucked away in here. It's kind of hard to see what's what. Obviously you're going to need to do your own schematics. You can't really copy off what I've done because you may not have the same year car, but what's most important at the end of the day is making sure you get your I bus and P bus more or less correct. Now obviously at the end of the day, every car is slightly different, but you can actually have all these more or less not even connected. This is what essentially allows you to utilize the MIU. These are like the oil pressure switch and all the other update switches on there. So these actually aren't as important as these. So making sure you get these correct is the most important. At the end of the day, if you want full functionality, you need to kind of have everything correct. So some of these you won't actually utilize some of the wires, to just kind of show you. These two right here on mine, I didn't actually end up utilizing these. These are still just here from the original harness. So neither one of these were utilized on this car. These were actually just from the old plug. So if I wanted to use the old plug, I left those intact, but those aren't actually in the new harness here. So there's a couple, and then there was one pin on this harness that was not utilized as well. So that pin I just essentially removed out of the connector. There was no wire for it to plug into on this 2000. So if you have a newer car, that would have been utilized, but on this car it was not. So now that we have programmed our MIU in the car, we do want to make a few changes. If you are particularly doing this in an OG 9.3 or an earlier 9.5, you're most likely going to have an SRS airbag light. So we're going to kind of go over that. And then also we are making some changes and doing some customization to the MIU at this point in time. So whether it be colors or LEDs, changing those out for the car that you want, this would be the time to do that. Now, something that is crucial is make sure before you do any customization to the MIU, make sure you are testing those in the car first, because if not, you may actually have a bad MIU. Now, we've actually have probably 10 words, over 10 MIUs from 06 and up dames, and a few of those actually tested bad. So we actually started utilizing an MIU and making modifications to it, not realizing that it actually was not good and more or less it was corrupt. So wasted a little bit of time utilizing an MIU that was bad. So make sure you test the MIU in the car. Easiest way to do that is arguably make sure that when you have it on the Tech 2 that it recognizes there is an MIU plugged in. Now, obviously, that's going to make your life way more difficult if you're doing wiring as well, too, because that can make it that much harder when you are trying trying to make sure your wiring is correct. So it's always good to make sure that the MIU you're pulling out is out of a crash car or a car that you know for a fact it was working in. So moving on to the next point, this is right here, the MIU that we actually ended up and finished with. Now we are going to be making some custom carbon fiber inlays. Now we did do a custom carbon fiber inlay that we tested. We are having some of those actually made on a water table here locally in Clearwater. So we will have carbon fiber shrouds that go in there or inlays for the 06 and up and for the NG93 as well. So NG93 and 06 and up dames, we will have carbon fiber inlays for anyone that's interested in those. However, Allison was not feeling the carbon fiber, particularly for the Monte Carlo yellow, but we did actually end up doing some customization on the yellow here, and it looks phenomenal. And we also changed the LEDs out for red, so there's no more green in there. So we have white on the numbers, and then we actually have red in the information there for the SID and or all the other things on the iBus, like the doors opening, things like that. So those actually stayed yellow. So it kind of gives you a good contrast. So everything is red or yellow or white in here. So we actually gives it more of a, I guess, uniform feeling, which we'll show you that at night here in a little while in the car. So moving on to the next thing, I've got another MIU here. This one's already has the cover popped off the back, and the front really just pops apart. It's really not complicated. The tabs just pop out, very straightforward. You can use any kind of flathead to go around and pop those out. Make sure you're just careful when you're popping the white ones out. Now there are 2 Phillips screws that sit in the back as well. You're gonna want to take those out. And then there's also going to be 2 Phillips that hold this actually in place. Before you take the actual MIU board out, you will have to take these off, your little arms, little fingers, or I'm not really sure what you call these, dials, needles, whatever it may be. You're gonna have to take those out as well. Once you have those out, you're going to see that it does allow you to actually pull this back, but you're gonna recognize and realize that you are gonna have to desolder these as well to make this way easier for you. You can technically probably get away, just be careful. If you're just gonna try to bend it open, you can, but all you need is a solder sucker. You can get these are like literally $1. Like, I mean, literally, you can get these for literally $1. Just to suck the solder out, you're just gonna go in there and more or less just heat them up. Once it's heated up, take your sucker, gonna suck that solder out of there, and then that allows you to depin it, and then that screen can come out. So I've already got one here, desolder sucked. Another one we were doing some other things on, so I'll show you more on this. And we actually were stealing the LEDs off of this one to make Allison's red. So we were stealing some LEDs, and as you can see, the LEDs are very, very tiny. These little guys are so tiny compared to a larger LED that we use. You can actually use larger ones too for a little bit brighter light. So you can actually use any kind of LED when you're taking these out and soldering them. But these are really tiny, really hard to get in and out. But if you're seasoned at soldering, it's really not that bad. Now, as you can see in here, something else I want to point out, when you are putting LEDs in, the positive is actually on the bottom side and then a negative is on the top. So if you do have LEDs that you are utilizing, a positive and negative side, you can only go in directionally one way. So your positive is actually on the bottoms, and then on the top you have your negative. So if you are going in there and soldering them backwards, you're going to have to redo those. Kind of a pain in the ass. So next things next, I'm going to show you a couple things here. If you're getting an SRS light, if you have a newer 9.5, it's not a Dame, but like 0405, you actually really don't even need to do this, but this is primarily for the older cars. We are going to effectively have to remove some of these lights and or relays. So if you look really carefully here, we have this R138, this relay right here. This is gonna have to be removed, and this R4 is also gonna have to be removed. So we're gonna have to remove both of those, and then more or less what we're doing is we're actually using the headlight sensors more or less to route the information for the SRS. So by removing these relays, we're actually going to be connecting 2 wires. So when we connect the 2 wires from both of these points, we are going to run an actual relay, the 240 ohm relay in between the top pin of here and then the top pin of here as well. So once those are both removed, we're actually going to connect 2 wires from here to there, more or less. So I'll show you kind of like what it in theory looks like when it's all said and done. It's really crucial too, this LED, it's crucial that the bottom portion, see if I can point here, the bottom portion of this LED is gone, but it's crucial that you lift this LED up. So when that gets lifted up, we're gonna actually be putting our wire actually here from the R4 relay. So that wire is essentially gonna run from here to essentially up here, and then from here to up here as well. Once again, these are going to get removed completely, and then a 240 ohm resistor. If you don't run the resistor between here to here, the light will consistently stay on, like when you turn the car off and you have it on. So it's one of those things, you're going to want to put that resistor in there, just because if not, that light essentially is going to lightly be dimly lit. So once all of that's done, you can effectively not have to worry about having an SRS light on. Now, if in fact you are maybe putting a race steering wheel or doing something where the SRS light doesn't matter, you could technically just remove that LED. By removing that LED, arguably you're not going to have an issue. Now you will, if you do remove it completely, you are going to want to essentially connect that joint or those two pads. That way you don't affect your iBus. So if you do that, your iBus essentially may not work properly as well, depending on what year your car is. So something else to take into consideration, so I'll just kind of show you, if you have tweezers, like with these LEDs, they're, like I said, they're really tiny. So now if you are, we're going to change any of your lights or LEDs throughout here as well, this is the time to do that. So let's say you don't want the green screen. All of these right here are your green screens. You also have 2 green here, 2 yellow here. Now, if you wanted to, let's say, have yellow all here or blue or whatever, you could order those, or in our case, you can actually remove a lot of the other components that aren't being utilized, such as the red, the white, things like that. Or maybe you want to have green instead of white lights. It actually looks really cool if you do change out for the white for green or something else. But all you would have to do essentially is come in here, heat up the one side. Now, you can either pry up very carefully. If you're not reusing them or you're using new ones, you can essentially just pry up. And once you pry up and you're off that tab, you're good to go. And then you come to the other side. I'll flip this around. And same thing. If you have little tweezers, it is definitely easier. But once you take them out, if you're going to reuse them, you can. You can reuse them. But what you already want to do is when you go back to solder something new in, you're going to want to put a little bit of solder on each of these pads. Just it makes your life that much easier. So as you can see, I've just dabbed a little bit of solder on there. So that just makes it that much easier for you when you're putting in new LEDs or if you're switching any of them around. Once again, just it's really not that long to do this, but you can, like I said, just it's very straightforward. Picks it up. Once again, it's arguably better to reuse sometimes, but these are so cheap. Make more sense to go ahead and do it. So if you are interested in having someone else do all the soldering for this mod, you can send it in. We do offer the basic mod for the SRS light, or if you want to switch all the LEDs, depending on how many you want to switch, anywhere between 1 to 2 hours of labor, depending on what you're trying to do. So that's something else to take into consideration if you don't want to deal with the monotony of doing this yourself. Now that we have explained that, we are going to then install our actual proper MIU in the car. Now, some of you may say, oh, hey, it looks too modern, or I like the original dash. Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, we actually will update the MIUs with better LEDs and things like that on the older style. Some people prefer it, but I just think it's allowing the car to have a little bit of modern touch. But also, why we're mainly doing this is we think it looks a little cleaner, a little newer, but we're also going to be updating some of the radio and the other components, and we wanted to free up the space as well. So with that, the SID is going to be living in this section here. We're no longer going to be having the SID sit above the radio on the fascia. So that's going to allow us to move the SID to here, which is another reason. Now, obviously the SIU, which is essentially the SID, that's this module that sits on the back. If you're doing this in OG93, to get this to fit back in, you are going to want to pop this off, and you're going to want to tuck this slightly over to the right, out of the way, because this will not properly seat in place if you still have this on the back of the MIU. So it's something else to take into consideration. Just pop it off, takes 2 seconds, saves you a little bit of headache when you're reinstalling this. So we went ahead and wanted to show you, we waited till this evening to show you guys what it would look like. Now, obviously we kind of have those yellow, so we have the yellow needle slash dials, kind of OEM original, kind of back in the day. So that kind of looks similar to how the OEM ones would have looked. Now the white I think looks much cleaner. And then as you can see at the bottom there, we have the whole red LED swap over. And then we obviously have some of the other things such as battery, oil, check engine. Those things, obviously the car hasn't started. You get those when you're getting ready to start the car. But just to kind of show you some contrast, try to keep everything either yellow, red, or white. Now when we open the door, I'll open the passenger door here. You can see that yellow pop up there, which is kind of nice for the doors, things like that. Now, obviously it would have been yellow from the factory, but we went ahead and still have it red. So let me see if I can go ahead and make it a little brighter just so you guys can see maybe. So the dimming obviously works. So that's really dim. That's as bright as it would go. Obviously the camera's not doing maybe as much justice on the red, but the red looks actually really cool. But other than that, this is what it looks like at night. We'll kind of get the rest of the car put back together tomorrow and kind of see what the end product looks like for this stage of the modifications. So went ahead and started the car. Now, when we Tech 2 this, we're going to Tech 2 this new MIU into the car. We need to make sure that the car knows it does not have TPMS. Obviously this car, being a 2001, did not have it. So we're going to make sure that we program the MIU to make sure there's no TPMS. And then yes, the check engine light is on. Saab thinks it's actually for a bad O2 sensor right now, which we are going to be changing relatively soon. But kind of give it a quick rev just so you can kind of see that everything works as it should. So everything works as it should. Now that we're in the daylight, kind of want to show you everything that we've got completed thus far. Now, we are going to be at a stopping point for our next few modifications, which we will follow up in our next video. But wanted to show you where we're at now. Just to show you guys, we do have an 06 and up Dame steering wheel. This is not the steering wheel that's going to be going in there, but just wanted to show you that you can put the 06 and up Dame steering wheels. It's actually really cool if you get a hold of the 06 and up Aero Dame steering wheels that does have the silver on it. Those were not available in the United States. Those were only available overseas. So those are always kind of cool to put in here. We're not going to be going with that. We're going to be going with a completely different steering wheel, but still kind of fun to talk about some other modifications you can do. Now, we have the black dash in here now, which looks way better. Actually matches the actual dash, the black from the NG900. Don't know why the Viggens in particular, they should have had a black dash, but I think they were just trying to keep cost savings down and got rid of the black option, went just solely to gray option. So in my opinion, they should have had a black dash like this at the beginning. Now, if you do this, if you do put in a black dash from an NG900, that VIN plate section for the car needs to be swapped over. So make sure you do that. And for the ACC, for anyone that's an OCD person like myself, when it comes to making sure things look nice, you can see the ACC is gray instead of black. So you can swap the faceplate over from an NG900 and utilize the faceplate on that and have this be all black. You cannot use the NG900 ACC. That is not a straight swap. So you cannot use that. So you do need to change the faceplate. If you change the faceplate though, you can get the cooler, older style buttons, which I think look better too. Also, if you notice down here on my center ignition switch, that is slightly different. So you do have to modify this to make it fit flush. We're going to be changing this a little bit as well. However, you can notice that the gray one that was originally in this car does not match the black. So what you'll want to do is get an 06 and up Dame in the ignition bezel cover here. That is all black. So that's gonna look better. So we have some of those inside. Just wanted to kind of show you guys the contrast, the black to gray. Now, same thing with the switches. You're gonna want to find an NG900 switch unit that is also black. You do not want to run that gray. Now, this is a 3-door, so we actively have a 5-door window switch here now to show you. We actually ran out of NG900 as well. So this was actually out of a convertible, but it is what it is. That's why you see the 4 button. So we actually have a 2-door one without the sunroof that we ordered from Europe. So that one is actually on its way and will be in here when we're done. If you notice here, this was originally out of a convertible, so we have that missing button. We are going to be utilizing that space for another button, which we'll show you at a later date. And last but not least, if you notice, the cluster bezel or the fascia that normally sits in here is not in here for a reason, because we are actually going to be doing some additional wiring for our night panel button, and we're going to be repurposing another button, which we'll show you in our next video as well, that's going to be utilizing for our SID. Now, our infotainment center is going to slightly change now that we're relocation, or we did relocate the SID to the SIU. In there, we're going to have a little bit of extra space to play with for our infotainment. Now, typically, I delete radio and infotainment. Allison does like to listen to music, so we are going to be keeping a nicer Apple CarPlay infotainment unit in here that does a little extra features as well. We'll show you what that looks like in our next video. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the process, showing you guys how the dash comes out, and then this super cool new modern cluster. If you are interested in having this done, you can always bring it to our shop, or if you need a little help doing it yourself, don't hesitate to shoot us a message. We're always willing to help. And as always, and if anyone's interested in those custom carbon fiber bezels, we will be producing those in the near future. As always, thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe for more awesome Saab content.